That's why like I have a hard time when people want to say like oh, this person got locked up, oh, do you see their childhood, blah 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 blah. It's like,
Right.
yeah, but you know what, there's a bunch of people who had bad childhoods just like them, and they didn't do what they did.
That's
And you
right.
know what, unfortunately that's life. Like you have no control of which womb you pop out of, right?
Yeah.
So this is the life you're in,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's up to you to catch up with everybody else or lag behind. It's your
Right.
choice. That is freedom. Freedom is responsibility.
That's right. That is exactly that's exactly what I was thinking. That's freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom is responsibility. And I think it was Shelby Steele, I want to
Hmm.
say, who talked about, he was the first person that I ever heard talk about how he didn't think that Black Americans were, that when they came out of slavery, that they really understood what freedom meant. And they didn't, not probably not when they came out of slavery, probably the 100 years after that, when things kind of started to normalize and Black people were doing, increasing phenomenally, honestly, like the,
Hmm.
the leaps and bounds that we were making were incredible. And things slowly, civil rights was starting to come, and, all these things. And we didn't, if you look back, it was almost, I understand why he says that, because it was like, once we really got a taste of the freedom, we didn't it's like we understood one aspect of it, of being able to do what you want to do, but that other part of the responsibility part and the accountability part, it was like we didn't all the way make that connection, because I think we would have rejected like affirmative action. I think we would have rejected um certain things, these hyper welfare programs. I think we would have rejected those things if we really more so internalized responsibility and accountability.
I don't know about that,
Okay.
to be honest with you. I think a lot of times when we talk about the history of Black Americans, part of me feels like we skip basically the 1900s up until 1960, right?
Mm-hmm.
We once in a while we highlight like, oh, we were married more so than
Right.
pre 1960s,
Yeah.
but outside of that, we don't really talk about that particular era. There was, Thomas Sowell talks about the growth that
Yeah.
Black Americans were having to go from people not being able, well, obviously not every Black person was enslaved, but
Right.
uh, a population of people which in their demographic were enslaved were not allowed to be to read or write, so
Right.
they're illiterate to in a matter, I think it was a matter of 40 years.
40 years cut in half. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a tremendous leap.
Mm-hmm.
Just from a literacy level,
Mm-hmm.
you had inventors, you had all different types of accomplishments,
Millionaires.
you had all types of things happening,
Mm-hmm.
even in the South. Even though economically in the South things weren't the greatest, they still had family, right?
Right.
They still had values. They were highly religious. There
Mm-hmm.
was there was a sense of moral code, not just with Black Americans, but it seemed to be somewhat in general,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, not every there are Christians who do bad things,
Right.
but what I'm ultimately saying is that I feel like we skip that period to make uh, some leap towards slavery. That because that's what it always goes
Oh
back
yeah.
to.
Oh,
You know,
I totally feel it. Yeah, absolutely.
right?
It's like,
So,
yeah,
so
nobody
we
wants
we
to talk about the success.
right. So it's kind of like, oh, you see how we're locked up today? That's
Mm-hmm.
because of slavery. And
Yes.
then when you go and look at the numbers, um, you know, I think the numbers I looked at were in the 1920s.
Mm-hmm.
We were locked up at a rate that was pretty much equivalent to our population, right? So you're telling me at a time period where there was legal segregation, there was
Mm-hmm.
legal oppression, that we weren't overly arrested? You don't
Right.
say.
Okay. Yes, I see what you're saying. I'm sorry. I follow now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
Right.
it's because also during that time period, what people don't want to talk about is, yeah, because a lot of us weren't educated, guess what, we were cheap labor. and
That's
and
right.
people liked using our labor,
That's right.
so we weren't we might have been discriminated, yes, absolutely, but
Hmm.
we were finding ways around it to have some sort of economic uh, success, or
Right.
climbing towards economic success without
Yes.
anybody, you know.
You keep talking about stuff that you're not supposed to talk about, Adam. You don't know. I don't know why you keep doing
Yeah,
that.
it's just annoying. There's a convenience to go towards slavery, and it's incredibly annoying. It's disingenuous when I see it,
Yeah.
because they completely skip, I don't know, 60, 70 years,
Hmm.
just to leap towards slavery, to make some association towards today, right? It's, to me, it's like saying Hitler had a dog too. It's
Right.
that
Right.
it's
Right.
that way. Oh, okay, so that then this person must be Hitler, right?
Right.
It-
Well,
it's
okay, let me
mhm,
so what I hear too is when you bring up being locked up,
yeah.
they'll say, "Well, why do you always bring up that? The majority of black people aren't locked up," which is true. The majority of black people are not locked up. The majority of black people are middle class. The majority of black people are not thugs, gangsters. The majority of black people are just like every other American.
Hmm.
So, what do you say when you're talking about like crime is a problem? Okay, like in Black America, crime is a problem. But when you say these things in certain circles, it's like, well, why do you always have to bring that up? Because the majority of Black people are not doing that. What do you say to that?
Well, the majority of the victims of those criminals are black. Does that matter? So I have a chapter where I'm talking about, you know, the way we immediately go towards idealizing the terrorists simply because they died in the hands of somebody else, right? Ignoring that they've been terrorizing their own community. Shoot, what's his name? The guy who was shot by the police at the Wendy's in Atlanta. His name
Oh, oh,
is
I
it
forget his
Brooks?
name. Oh God, don't I forget.
Yeah,
But I know
but
who you're talking
you
about.
know what I'm
He was
talking about.
he was drunk in the car and he ended up tussling with the cops and shot. Well, he got shot. He yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly my point. He was drunk in his car, right? So what if he was driving and he killed somebody,
Mm.
right? And he was already, I believe, he was on probation, right?
Yes, I believe so.
So this is a guy with a criminal history, and not just tickets, a criminal history. He's been locked up before,
Hmm.
who's out drunk driving, and he could have killed somebody.
Yeah.
And thankfully, he fell asleep in a drive-through instead of falling asleep on the highway, or falling
Right.
asleep driving down the street,
Hmm.
and could have seriously hurt somebody. You know,
Hmm.
it's that part that we seem to ignore, just for the convenience to find some way of saying that uh, people are wrongly treated, and all this
Hmm.
other stuff. And I seriously question, why is it okay to aim for, like, for example, bail reform? Why are we
Hmm.
putting so much effort into bail reform, but no one cares when these people get out and they hurt somebody, the same
Right.
demographic of people that you say that you care so much about?
Right.
And
It makes no sense.
and while I understand when they say, well, why do you even bring this up? Actually, we're not even the ones who bring up crime all the time, right? Or not crime, imprisonment. And
Hmm.
that's the interesting part. There's a certain demographic that brings up imprisonment to make a point of being oppressed, because we're disproportionately high in prisons, right?
Right.
But then there's the other sect that brings up crime
Hmm.
because people are being victimized by criminals.
Right.
So there's the two sides. If we say that we shouldn't talk about the criminals, being imprisoned, then we're being looked at like we're ignoring a problem.
Yeah.
If we say that crime is too high, then we're looking at like we're chastising, or we're only highlighting certain things. The fact of the matter is, this always goes back to the taboo phrase of black and black crime. But ultimately, we should just call it Black victims, right? Legit victims.
Yeah.
Do these people matter
Right.
in these particular communities who are being affected? It really doesn't take that many people to destroy a neighborhood.
Right.
Imagine a neighborhood with 1,000 people,
Yeah.
right? One crazy person. Would that destroy a neighborhood? Maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
10? Possibly. 50?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take that many people. It doesn't take that many people to feel unsafe to go outside, to
Yeah.
feel like there's terror around the corner. So,
Mm.
when we're looking at crime and we're looking at how this impacts real people, real working class people,
Yeah.
in these particular Black neighborhoods, they're unsafe. And then when the reflex is, well, they're being over policed, there is, like, for example, New York City. And I'm not the biggest fan of New York City,
Mm-hmm.
but my God, the statistics show that the police are in the locations where there's the highest violence of crime.
You're right.
It just happens to be in Black neighborhoods that
You're
there's the
right.
highest violence. Like,